planted up here. I want to thank everybody for coming out this morning. This is the first time Downtown Partners has ever done this, and this is a fundraiser for Downtown Partners, and we appreciate your support and definitely your interest. As you can tell, this tour was extremely popular, more so than we imagined. So we are going to do our best to move everyone along and make sure everybody kind of stays together. Now, there are a few places we're going to be going into that we're not going to all be able to go down there at once. So we are going to have to kind of parcel people out. So please bear with us as we do that. You are allowed to take photos in these places. Expect that you will need to be walking up and down some stairs, but I don't think anything you're going to find is particularly dangerous. In fact, there'll be a couple places there are no stairs at all, so you don't have to worry about that. If you have questions along the way, feel free to ask them, and we'll do our best to answer. But right now, we're going to start the tour. We're standing at 401 Jefferson, which was known as the Hedge Building. It's built in 1881. The original upper floors of this building were a business college. By the 1890s, there was a company called Morrow and Wilson that was kind of a gift shop on the first floor. They sold wallpaper, they sold, I believe they sold some china, they sold bicycles, books, just a little bit of everything. And I think they also used the basement of this area. In 1933, Johnson and Rasmussen, which was a men's clothing business, a clothing store, formed and moved into the first floor of this building. They also used the basement. And I've done some research about all these places as we go through, and so I'll tell you a little bit about the history and what you can learn and what these places were used for. We found that in November of 1946, the basement of this building was remodeled for the sporting goods department of Johnson and Rasmussen. In fact, I don't know if Councilor Bob Fleming is here. I don't think he is. City Councilor Bob Fleming says he remembers working here in the basement in the sporting goods department when he was a kid. They sold fishing tackle, hunting equipment, ping pong tables, and all sorts of games. And in 1946, they put up knotty pine paneling and asphalt tile on the floor. But that was a remodel from an earlier use. We're not sure. It was probably Morrow and Wilson that had an earlier retail use in this basement. So when you go down, you're going to see where some of that tile and the woodwork is still remaining, or where it's been removed. You also see the original storefront window and doorway kind of underneath where I'm standing. So I think we're going to have Dennis Simler, our board president, take down a number of people at a time, and we'll kind of just try to get through as quickly as possible, so we can make sure we get to all 5 sites. 15, not 15. Sorry. Hey, Dennis.
These walls were all built over with knotty pine and studded out, and so we tore it all off and found this original window and door that was here. And originally there was another opening that came in, and you could come down here. In fact, you can kind of see on this thing it says Johnson Rasmus, and I think it had a date on it. So that's when they did their remodel in 1947, and they made this the sporting goods. They made this the sporting goods. So we, I think, are going to take this back. We're going to leave all the windows and doors and probably just clean it up and maybe make it a work area for some of our people upstairs and reuse it again. And the funny thing is, when we started tearing this apart, you can see where this is over. There was a wall built here, and then there were shelving here that was where they unloaded everything and put it in there. We found this freezer built in the wall, and we were afraid to open it for a while because it was all closed up, and it was built completely into the wall. Along the wall there, you see that ladder. That ladder would have been used on the first floor when it was a bookstore. It's one of those ladders that you go along with books. And then that brick area over there is the original boiler room, so it's completely all bricked in. we don't have a lot of use here. I think we're going to wall this up across here and use this end of it, but we took a lot of shelving out, and then there's a big mirror back there yet, and kind of these were dressing areas, I think, when it was Johnson Rasmus. So, of course, we've added a lot of pipes to the ceiling, but it was just so interesting to find that whole storefront over there in its original state.
So this is Downtown Partners is putting this on. I want to point out that we have about 22 rehab projects happening downtown right now. There's a number of them just within a block radius of here. They're really all over the place. You can see there's 8 apartments going in across the street. As we walk down this way just a little bit, there's 2 more apartments that are just being finished above Country Friends. There are another 3 apartments in condos, construction after that, another 29 in the planning stage. There's 2 apartments. They're almost completed that are upstairs here above Country Friends. It was interesting. They started that. They got a grant to do those apartments. And when I was up there earlier this year, I took a bunch of photos. The upper story here had not been used in about 100 years. There was never electricity up there. There was never plumbing. There was never heat. There was 1 gas light fixture, that was it, and I found graffiti on the wall from 1923. So it has been empty of all that time. You know, half of the square footage of this building had been vacant for a century. So Marcia Stiefel, who owns it, is very excited now to get the second floor of this building, you know, producing some income. I think everybody knows about the Methodist Church project and the loft on Jefferson across the street. Within the next few months, they're going to start rehabbing those windows that were uncovered last year, and the original storefront will be reconstructed as well.
Wow. Will they be using those upper floors?
Yeah, the 4th floor is going to be a gymnasium, and you can't see from here, but they're actually topping the roof on this building to make room for basketball court. So the 4th floor. Somebody asked about the Methodist Church project across the street. The 4th floor is going to be a gymnasium, and they're actually popping the roof. You can't see it from street level here, but they're actually raising the roof further back, so they'll be able to have basketball out there. My understanding is the 3rd floor, for the time being, is going to be empty, although it is being rehabbed. The 2nd floor is going to be reception space for when people have a wedding in the church. And there's actually going to be a connecting bridge between the Methodist Church and the Besh building. And then the 1st floor, they're going to have their church offices in the rear, and they plan to put kind of a coffee shop in the front of it, open to the public.
Oh, that's awesome.
What's the name of it?
Besh, yeah.
Sometimes at the printing, making the signs that would go for sales and things, and it was down there, and yes, they did get stuff.
Good. So that's there were this, and we're going to see this later too. But there were a number of spaces like that that goods and especially coal and things were delivered through the sidewalk. And so this is one of the existing ones. There's also some vents back here in the sidewalk, and that's because the boiler room for this building is actually underneath the sidewalk right there.
I have a question. According to my parents, there used to be a place where they held dances on the roof.
That's right. There was on the roof of this building back at least in the 20s, and I know in the 30s, it was called the Spanish Garden. They had a terrazzo dance floor up there. There were boxing matches held up there, and there was also a miniature golf course, all made out of wood. And in fact, I was telling somebody earlier, and we'll talk about this in a minute. Downtown Partners purchased half of this block, the Bookend Building's half of the block, on the third floor of one of those buildings is that miniature golf course. It's all in pieces, but they all fit together like, hole A number 1, hole A number 2, and all that kind of stuff. And it's got lighthouses, it's got putting greens and everything. It's we're not sure if it's all still there, but I can tell you a lot of it is. Is there a question? So we're going to walk a little bit more down Jefferson and then up the alley to the next stop.
Fine.
Out Carlos Capdevilla's insurance office across the street. That building dates to the mid to late 1800s, and it was originally a grocery store owned by a man named William Eyrer. I-H. Well, I'll try to yell. All right. The building on the corner, 601 Jefferson, was originally a grocery store owned by William Eyrer, I-H-R-E-R. And we're going to see his house next, just up around the corner.
It was always this steep. This is an old road, isn't it?
You let anybody in here. I know. Jeez. That's it. That's for anybody. Yeah. Start.
Okay, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stand here.
Okay.
Dave's down on the hill. What we're gonna do is, we're gonna go down the stairs, then we're gonna go out the back door, go to the patio, and then they can look in the, I got the basement door
Okay.
open.
Good. Good. Okay.
And the lights are on. So you can kind of point out where the fireplace is on the west wall.
Operate this as a bed and breakfast on the upper floor, and they live on the middle floor. And before I go any further, I wanted to thank everybody who opened up their buildings for us today. We really do appreciate it. Kathy is on this floor. Dave's on the lower floor where they live. So we're going to come through here. You can see a bit on this floor, and then we'll go down the stairs, and we'll also be able to see in the basement. I mentioned earlier that these streets have been raised quite a bit over time, and we're going to see that in this building. Washington Street in particular, with all the hills of Burlington, throughout the years, they're trying to smooth them out a little bit, and even though it seems very hilly to us, it was a lot hillier 100 years ago. So the street level of Washington has been raised a bit, and so the front door of this building is actually underground, an earlier front door, so you get to see that as you go through.
Wow.
I'm going to step out.
That's downstairs, and you'll see that when you walk downstairs. When you walk down the stairs, you'll see the original front door.
So this is the second floor.
Right.
Might have had a window or something.
Look, those hinges are really neat.
Oh, thank you.
I need somebody to tell my husband something.
What?
Downstairs,
Yeah.
have my husband tell people that the two doorways going into our bedroom are in and outdoors, that the hinges are on opposite sides.
Oh, okay.
And he kind of needs to tell people that.
Okay.
He thanks a lot.
So, do you mean this one? Yeah, did you hear her say that?
Yeah, I knew it was down here.
Yeah.
It's
she
that right
wanted you to
there.
Point out the in and outdoors.
Hello, how you doing?
Good.
All right.
Just down the alley and the patio and the basement.
Okay,
Okay.
in that
Thank you.
fireplace, she said something about the fireplace there, that we should look.
Out in Denver. Yeah, so beautiful, beautiful landscape.
Nobody knows where it's at, though, Steve.
Yeah, it's very secret.
Yeah.
If you're interested in this kind of thing, the public library has great resources, and the two things that I used that you were just in, that would have been the main living level. And watch your step on the threshold.
On the Volta, where are you gonna go in the alley?
Yeah. Thank you.
Big predictions.
So they have this same board we have where?
They have them on microfiche at the library.
At the library.
Uh-huh. Yeah, if you go, oh yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure
You'll see
exactly
everything.
when that was built.
At this time, we're not living space like they are today. The fireplace was actually here against this back wall. There's a built-in cupboard that's original to the building, we think. I mentioned that William Eyrer, who lived here, had that grocery store down at 601 Jefferson. And they actually had a number of outbuildings behind here that they used in their business. They had a duck pond back here, and they had a pigeon house. So they raised squab and geese and ducks to sell in their grocery store. They raised them in the backyard here.
So that door that we saw at the bottom of the stairs went right onto Washington Street at that time.
My guess is that it would have been a few steps down to that door. So, in other words, Washington has not been raised 10 feet, but maybe 5 or 6 feet. And you would have gone down a few steps or up a few steps, depending on which level you wanted to get to. But yeah, it's definitely been raised quite a bit.
The highway department would have done that, or?
Just the streets, as originally there was, it was just dirt streets, and then maybe they would have gravelled it or something. A lot of these streets had wood blocks for paving. Some of the principal downtown streets had granite pavers at one time. In fact, if you're familiar with the hose station, it's now a dentist's office at the corner of South Main and South Streets. That's built with granite paving stones that came from downtown. And after that, they bricked the streets, and then they covered them with asphalt, and then maybe covered them with asphalt again and again. And to control flooding and to control runoff, erosion, and also to help get horses and wagons up and down. They try to level these streets off as much as possible. So they're always filling in ravines and scraping down hillsides to make it just a little more even. So some of these streets are quite a bit higher now than they used to be. If you want, I think we have another crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you guys exit and we'll let the next group in?
Some lunch for 150.
Yeah. We'll tell Sean. We'll do it in shifts. The next place we're going to go to is the basement underneath what's now La Tavola, and we're going to go down the alley and end through the basement door, and I think we'll probably mostly all of us be able to get in there at once. We won't look at it right now, but if you ever get a chance, look at the front of La Tavola, and you'll see that there's iron grates in the sidewalk. You can look down below and see the original lower storefront underneath that basement, or into the basement. You'll also see there's some actual limestone sidewalk pieces that are still left downtown in front of La Tavola. And I'm told, I think next year they're going to take those out and replace them with concrete because they're starting to sink into the ground, as you'll be able to see. But we're going to go down around behind in the alley. A ramp or sidewalk on the side was really pulling away from the building, so they just tore that out, and I think it's going to be a wood ramp that will lead into that doorway.
They can hear you back there.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the salt and pepper shaker business. And trivet business.
Really?
And we would bring stuff in here and haul it up on this full elevator.
That's a good thing you came along then. I take back everything I said.
Horses were stored.
Yeah.
We restaurant, Ty's.
Yeah. This is the elevator.
They gave me a...
Let me go.
Stage here.
Just stay there.
This is fun.
at the end of the alley. The sidewalk on the side of that building was all solid concrete and stone, and it was really pulling away from the building, so they ripped that out, and that's going to be replaced with a new ramp. We're standing in the basement of 316 North 4th Street. This was Isaac Prue's funeral parlor and undertaking business building. Originally, he was located on Jefferson Street, and then later moved somewhere near the corner of Front and High Streets, down about where the gas company, the gas plant used to be. In 1882, they moved up here to 4th Street and established their business here. And of course, Prue's is still in business across the street. They moved into the old newspaper office in 1936, but they were located here in this building from 1882 to 1936. Lived on the second floor, and where we're standing now is where they had the horses stabled. And then later they would have had cars down here. And I don't know if there's any evidence. Burton Prue wanted to be here today, but they have a funeral across the street. Of course, he knows lots of the history of this and many buildings, but he said there were actually vents down here to bring fresh air in for the stables. I'm going to also introduce Kathy Gordon, who owns the building right here. I'm going to hand the microphone over to her and see if she wants to add a few things.
I'm very proud of this building, by the way. I love it. It's a little scary sometimes at night down here in the basement, and I'll explain that more in a minute. But it's very interesting. If you look, I'm going to point my flashlight up and try not to shine anybody's eyes. But you see over here, that is an elevator. That elevator goes all the way up to the second floor, up into the floor that I live on upstairs. If you notice the shape of it, it's a casket elevator to take. It would have stopped if it had a body or casket on it. It would have stopped up at the first floor where the behind the restaurant today, where they actually did the embalming and all that. And then the whole building. If you've ever been in the restaurant, do you know how the floor slants down? It does that from all the way back. Terry and Steve Crowley bought this and had the print shop in the back for a while. And they built us a floor that was level, but originally that floor slanted all the way from the back, all the way out to the front door. I guess so that they could roll the coffins out easier. I'm not exactly sure. If you look in the front over here, do you see there's doors right there? Yeah. There was totally, and there is a tunnel that runs through there. And if you want to go up there, you can peek, you can see arches that people would have walked through because these are storefronts all the way along. You would go down the steps underneath the street and walk along underground storefronts that were here. It's my understanding this was a bicycle shop, the first bicycle shop in Burlington ever. When it started, that was open down here. And then I think there were several things after that happened. And they did, like you said, and the other thing, I always say, hey, how many people get a cobblestone street basement? Me. Okay, now, notice that the bricks are laid the way they are, kind of in Snake Alley, so that the horses could get up and down out of here easier as well. So that's why they're that way. The only thing I have to say as far as scary-wise, because it's Halloween, okay? Everybody always says, isn't it scary to live in an old funeral home? And I'm like, no, because who's going to haunt a funeral home, right? I mean, if you're going to be a ghost, you'll go back to haunt people that would, in their houses or something. Anyway, but I would have to tell you that not all that long ago, I had noticed that there was a noise, and I couldn't quite figure out what that noise was. The stairs that go over here go up into, the restaurant area, and then that whole stairwell goes clear up into my apartment. Well, when the guys go downstairs to take the trash out at night from the restaurant, I always hear them. They go clump, clump, clump down the stairs, and they talk, but I can hear it perfectly in certain parts of my apartment. Well, one day, it was like a Sunday morning, the restaurant's closed, everything's closed, and I'm hearing this noise, and I thought, what is that noise? And I thought, I hear it all the time, but at odd times. And then I kept thinking, is it pipes? And then I realized, It's somebody going up and down this set of stairs. It sounds exactly like when the guys go out at night, walking up and down the stairs. So that's the only thing I've ever really had happen in here, but every so often I hear somebody go up and down the basement stairs. But, okay. Anyway, take a look around, and if you have any questions, I'm here, and Steve's here. He knows a wealth of stuff, so. Thanks for coming.
And thank you for Kathy for opening this up. And I do want to mention, she talked about the bicycle shop, and I asked Burton Prue about that, and he said, if you look at that storefront, he said that was how they got down to this bicycle shop, and it opened here in 1892, and Prue's had the first bicycle dealership in Burlington. He said they had, and he showed me the ad. It's framed on his office wall. An ad for the Bike-lorama. They actually had a bike track in this basement where you could ride bikes around.
Bike-lorama.
Yeah, to try it out. Or you buy.
Now be very careful of your steps. This was built to, I think Terry and Steve built this little platform to keep paper on, boxes of paper. So just be careful of your, I'm sure you've had to be careful everywhere you walk today, but just be very careful of your step, and feel free to look around. Don't get up in this section on that platform. I rent that out to some attorneys' offices. They keep boxes and files and records and stuff in there. So I'd appreciate it if you just stay out of their stuff. But
You see them on the right side.
all the way down to the block. I know the blue shop and those guys.
Back there.
So you can peek down in here. Can you see? There's
There's an arch off to
There's
the
an
right.
arch. You can see the arches up in there.
People come through the arches.
Yeah, this was a storefront. This is where you would come into the store. The stairs would just come down here. Like if you see, I've got a grate out here.
There may be. I'm told at the barber shop next door.
Well, how are you? Especially if we have to go back to the house. Did we get there? Look to the left. You can see there are store
No, you can go like this. You walk down, just underneath the sidewalk. It's just open. You can walk downstairs and keep going.
And I do what
Take it apart and get all these spin-off products.
But apparently,
Probably years though, that all the other stuff
yeah, it's really. See, and I think that's the point before all the sidewalks. There was some.
Most bizarre light switch I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you there.
Maybe I'll start them back out here. Now is now owned by Geo at RC&D, a nonprofit organization. It was originally built in 1924 for Bach, the Bach flower shop, Bach florist. It was designed by a Burlington architect named George Washburn. Designed a number of great buildings around town. City Hall he had a hand in. The old Christ Christian Science Church up at the corner. Now Dr. Holt's office was a Washburn building. The Daily House at the corner of Court and 4th. What used to be the Sturmers building is another Washburn building. A number of really great houses around town.
Ours.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, John's house was the last building he designed at the corner of, what's that, 6th and?
5th and Arch.
5th and Arch. It was the Presbyterian parsonage, rectory, and I think they had the grand opening of that like the week he died, in 1925. And I found out he designed my house too, which was kind of cool. So Washburn was really one of Burlington's most important architects, especially in the first quarter of the 1900s. And this building is a good example of what we would call commercial prairie style structure. If you know a little bit about architectural history, it's influenced very much by Louis Sullivan, who practiced out of Chicago. And if you get a chance to see the front of the building, it has this very elaborate terracotta ornament, so that it's a clay that's glazed and done in different patterns and applied as decorative elements to the front. And Washburn would have ordered these out of a catalog, probably not designed himself. In fact, I found at least 2 other buildings in other cities, one in Chicago, one in Wapello, that have the exact same kind of terracotta. But this is, I would say, downtown Burlington's best example of prairie-style architecture. It's pretty uncommon right around here. So this building was built in 1924 for Bach Forest. However, it was built on the foundations of a much, much earlier building. And we can see that here, this tin ceiling. Not sure what this area would have been used for, but we're going to go into the basement. And I want you to look up at the ceiling of this basement as we go in.
Well, you know, Pheasants Forever does stuff on with geodarcy.
So in 1924, when this building was constructed, they were no longer building downtown buildings with field stone foundations. But this basement does have stone foundations. They've been kind of spackled over with concrete in some areas. The basement, you can tell by looking up, actually dates probably to the 1840s. You can see some of these beams are actually hand-hewn. In some of the places, you'll see the floor joists are actually just logs that still have the bark on them. So the basement of this building is actually much, much older than the 1920s. This is one of the earliest parts of buildings that is still existing down here. I think, I don't have my flashlight with me, but you'll be able to see certain areas where they've filled in with newer lumber, but then some older ones as well. This was, as you can kind of tell, this was actually 2 addresses. I think it was 306 and 308 North 3rd, so it's divided down the middle. But there were a pair of storefronts above. There was a bakery in this building early on in 1886. The Sanborn map shows a bakery. And its oven is shown as being in the rear corner of the basement. You can see there's a fireplace that has a couple stove holes filled in. So that would have been a commercial oven back in the corner. There were a number of businesses up here on the first floor. Later on there were insurance offices, things like that. One thing I thought was very interesting, in about 1900 there was a Turkish bathhouse on the first floor of this area. And it shows the bathtub right in the middle of the first floor. So I think that's probably about where this particle board was. You know, my guess is, it was a pretty good sized bathtub. And my guess is, you know, the floor above that was water damage, and at some point they replaced it later on with the particle board. But this right in here would have been right about where that Turkish bathhouse was. And is Dennis Imler here with us yet? Not yet. Or does anybody have a flashlight?
He's in the back.
He's in the back. Okay, here's somebody with a flashlight. We're going to go into, actually you can see in both sides of this basement, The coal chutes here were never filled in like they have been in a lot of places. So if somebody has a flashlight and wants to take a peek up towards the front, they would have delivered coal through holes in the sidewalk to the basement because the boilers for all these buildings were located in the basements. So you can see that up here in the front. This is the sidewalk, the front of the building. Where's the guy with the flashlight? Delivered it down here so they could just carry it straight to the boiler. You know, Burlington downtown is pretty interesting. Unlike a lot of downtowns, the alleys for the most part don't go behind buildings. In a lot of areas downtown, the alleys go between buildings, so it makes it a little more difficult to deliver coal and goods into the basements of some of them.
Yeah.
And then every once in a while you see one, there's a little one. Right, yep. And in the other side you see there's actual logs. Yeah, on the other side of this wall. And the lights are on there. Of a much earlier building. The walls are fieldstone limestone walls, or quarried limestone walls. They've been kind of spackled over with cement. And you'll see above, a lot of the floor joists are cut lumber, but there are a few that are actually hand-hewn timbers. And on the other side of this wall, there are actually some log floor joists. They use the logs, they still even have the bark on them. So the basement of this building probably dates to about the 1840s or so.
Which building is this?
Right now this is geode RC&D, but this was originally, in 1924, built as Bach Flower Shop. And this was the flower shop for many, many years. And there was a bakery in here in the 1880s on that side, and in fact they had their commercial oven back in the corner of the basement. And in 1900 there was a Turkish bathhouse on the first floor. And that Sanborn map that I talked about earlier actually shows the bathtub in the middle of the floor on this side.
What exactly is a Turkish?
Little dreary. Excuse me. Little paint, some curtains. Oh.
See, I have a webpage, I forgot what it had. Out there, but I had no idea. Someday.
Oh my gosh.
Somebody, excuse me, I'll go back to home.
Russ, am I correct that triangle pool hall was on this side of the building, in the basement. I think if you look at the floor, you can tell where the pool tables were because the paint is worn off the floor around the tables, but where the tables existed, the paint is not worn off. And you can see there's a couple, I think there's like, isn't there like card patterns, like
over there.
diamonds and spades and stuff painted on the floor? I'm told by somebody who used to hang out down here a long time that, we gotta wait, huh? Or do I have to yell even louder? I'm told that Minnesota Fats played down here. I'm not sure when the Triangle Pool Hall closed, but it was down here for a while. Also make sure you take a look. The McConnell Company did have a large walk-in safe that's down in this corner of the basement. So
Go be safe.
Wow. Walk-in. Bomb shelter.
And harness manufacturing company. They did wholesale. In the basement, these beams are concrete. Up above this, they're all heavy timber, and actually the timbers get a little bit smaller as you go up because they have less weight to carry as you get up to the upper floors. But the Darnells are working on the redevelopment of this building for residential units on the top 4 floors and be commercial on the first floor. So they're fortunate they have the nicest, biggest, most well-lit workshop I've ever seen down here for their project.
So, when did they build this building?
1907.
spider.
Yeah.
Huge spider.
It looks like you had a lot of help.
You think that?
They said there was a yeah, exactly. Oh, this, you mean it all that, there's a smoke box there?
Flue gases that we had the fire here that had gone up the back and then come back this way and then up the chimney.
Yeah. And would you have some kind of blower to force it there?
No, I think